Hello and welcome, inspired community here at Be Connected. I'm so happy to be here at this stage event or speakers event, stage of inspiration. One voice, many hearts, and our top speaker today is Mr. Alan Stevens. Hello and good morning.
It is morning. It's actually 5 o'clock here in the morning in Australia.
Oh my goodness. For me,
Early.
it is 9 p.m. in the evening, and I know the US people, you have something like I have to calculate 1 p.m. or something.
No, it's 12:04
Yeah.
here,
Okay.
Pacific time.
It's so amazing. We talked about connection earlier, and to be connected all around the world is amazing. Please mute yourself for during the presentation, and we will allow the speakers. Then for the Q&A, if we have time, whatever Alan gifts us today, like we don't know what he prepared, but I want to introduce the master at enhancing human connections. Alan Stevens specializes in human pattern recognition, a unique approach decoding the science and art of reading people to foster genuine relationships. His work transcends merely solving communication problems to empowering clients to unlock the vast potential in every interaction. Please tell us more. The stage is yours. Welcome, Mr. Alan Stevens.
Thanks very much. Well, today what I want to do is not just talk at you. I've got a few slides I want to show you just to sort of keep me on track and take me through a few things. But I'd like to have a little bit of fun today and be able to use you as well to be able to do a little bit of reading, face reading, while we're on screen as well, if that's okay with everyone. And I will point out that as far as it comes down to, when it comes down to the traits, there is no right or wrong trait. Every trait you have has upsides and has downsides. The upsides are where your strengths are. The downsides are where you get challenged. And if you know the downside of your traits, then you can take control over those. But it's all about reading people to create relationships. It's not about using it to manipulate people. So when I talk about some of the traits that I can see, I'm looking at where your strengths are and how I can build stronger relationships with you. But I'll just put my slides on quickly and just work through a couple of those. Just get the screen here right. And there we go. You'll be able to see the screens there. Now, question for all of you on that, or two questions. Who would like to be able to read minds? Who would like to know what their spouse is thinking? Yeah, well, so would I. The thing is that nobody can do that, but I can teach you the next best thing. And that's what we're going to do today, is talk about the next best thing. So I'll just give you a quick little bit of my history first of all. I've worked with organisations like Disney Films, Gillette, the Australian Tax Office, the Australian Federal Police, and it's been all about how to build connections with people to uncover what makes people tick. The main reason I do everything is for building relationships through better negotiations while uncovering deception. At the same time, all of my courses now here in Australasia, Australia and the Asian area, have been accredited as certified learning solutions. So all the businesses that need to get their professional points each year to stay current, they can do my courses. The only people I haven't got so far are school teachers in Australia. But I'm now working on a project with 2 ex-school principals who put together courses for school teachers in New South Wales, about 300,000 school teachers. And they will then get my courses accredited there as well. So the skills can be used anywhere that you can think of. I've also run a group called the Campfire Project. I'm also a director of a charity called the Business of Smiles, and I'm a director on one of the local Montessori primary schools. You'll see that as we go through here, everything I do is connected to relationship building. The Campfire Project is a safe place for men and women from around the world to be able to come and tell their stories. It started out originally with me just interviewing men because I knew a lot of men in business didn't know their role at home and didn't know their role at work. They thought, right, our job is to go out and bring the resources into the home. And to do that, they had to be absent from their family. So that's how they showed their love for the family, by being absent. At the same time, in the workplace, with gender equality and political correctness and everything else, the men were worried about not so much that they weren't following that. They were doing the best that they could, but the rules kept changing. What you could do one day or say one day, you couldn't say the next. And that was causing frustration and also a lot of confusion for them. And that's why I started the Campfire Project, so that they had a safe place where they could come and voice their concerns without being judged, without being counselled, without being criticised in any way. And we ran that with about 30 men to start with. Then I brought them into panel discussions. And as I brought them into panel discussions, talking about all different things like masculinity, femininity, masturbation, you named it, we talked about it. That was when the women in the group sent me personal messages saying they love the guys. They'd never heard men talk so deeply about their emotions, nor so wisely about how to improve society. And they wanted to get involved, which is what I'd been waiting for. So I brought them into the Campfire Project as well, in that they started telling their stories and joined the panel discussions. We've talked about menstruation, menopause, does size matter in the bedroom? Over 600 hours of conversations with over 2,000 people in the group. We've got a full range of the gender identities, the different religions, different cultures. We've never had any bigotry, sexism or racism. And we've never had anybody disrespectful to anybody else. What we did with that is proving that when you treat people the right way, you have much better relationships. That led on to the Business of Smiles, which is a charity where we go out and we talk to people in the public. And well, actually, you can see little yellow socks there, and I've got a pair sitting right here where they come up on the screen. You'll see these little black dots all over them. We give those socks to people and we tell them the story of the socks. Very quickly, the socks, the black dots represent the tough days you're going to go through. They're going to come. They're not, no way you're going to get out of them. They're going to happen. But the yellow reminds us there's more sunny days and dark days. When you've got enough of that, your dark days never join up. And so that's why we hand those out to people, and we find that once we've done that, we end up in conversations around mental health, because everybody then usually lets all out what they've been hanging on to. And we handed out 2,500 pairs after recent floods the other year in 5 days, and started 2,000 conversations. And in Melbourne, in a place called Frankston, where they had the greatest number of lockdowns in COVID and are still trying to recover from it, we handed out 2,500 pairs in 12 days leading up to that Christmas. So we know that a lot of people are in need, and the best way to understand their needs is to connect with them. The Montessori Primary School is all about building communities. That's why I got involved with that, and I was asked to become one of their directors. At the same time, with the work I've been doing, I've been up for 19 regional, national and international awards over the last 4 years. I'm up for a couple more at the moment. There've been everything from Man of Influence, Social Change Maker for Australia, then Keynote Speaker, an international award. So there's been a lot of awards that have come through. But the only reason I'm telling you about that is not to impress you, but to realise that when you use these skills properly to build relationships with people, they impact every area of your life. And so everything that I've done in the middle of COVID, when I turned 70 a few years ago, that birthday was actually celebrated on 7 continents. This is what happens when you build the proper relationships. Leadership is all about building relationships. Now, I've told you all that, but I wasn't always good at what I do. This is what I want to impress on you. Every one of you listening to this, except for a very small percentage of children, every child is a profiler. They have to learn how to recognize, first of all, your faces. Who's who? Who's friendly? Who's a family? Who's people they shouldn't be around? At the same time, they need to recognize the emotions. If you're angry and you're their parent, they need to know that. So children are expert profilers. If you've got young children, here's a question for you. How often do they push you to the edge, but don't push you over the edge? They have read you perfectly. But it's like any muscle. If we don't work it, it atrophies. And so over time, we get so used to playing sports, going to school, doing all these other things, and we're focusing on all these new things. We're no longer focusing on reading people because we don't need to as much now. We understand who our family and friends are. And so we then, it just atrophies. So what I'm going to be talking about today, when you learn these skills, I'm only just a personal trainer. It's like if you were fit when you're younger and you've gone through life, you've raised your children, everything else, you decide, right now it's time for me to, get fit again. Quickest way to do that is find a personal trainer. Well, I'm a personal trainer when it comes to reading people. And as you can see, 2 divorces, a lot of broken relationship, business partners who emptied the bank out. My first wife left and I had 3 sons to raise on my own. They were 4, 11 and 12. So I had to understand them. Then later on, to get them to respect women, I realized I had to create a relationship with their mother to come back and be able to join with them and co-parents. That was a challenge for me. So everything I've done in life has been the school of life. It's been the school of hard knocks. That's the way most of us learn. It's the experience. We can read textbooks and learn a lot of information. That's knowledge. But it's when we apply it and we get that experience, that's when it becomes wisdom. And so hopefully I'll become wiser over the years. So that was my first 50 years of life. It was after my second divorce, things for me had to change. I realized that I needed to read people better. And that's where my journey started. First thing was my second wife had been doing a dietetics degree. We'd met an Aboriginal group, and this was many years before our divorce. And I had a look at it and thought maybe this is for me and maybe not. But it was around about a number of years later, after my wife and I had separated and divorced, she had actually taught me into becoming a massage therapist while we were married. I'd put that on hold when we divorced. And then all of a sudden, I had a couple of friends ask me to give them a massage, and I did that. And they were asking me about out-of-body experiences, where the extra hands came from, all these bizarre questions. To me, a technical masseuse didn't make any sense, and I needed some answers. And they taught me into opening my rooms up again, and I started attracting terminally ill patients. I would take them through NLP sessions, talking about their past, etc. I'd put them on the table, give them a massage. We use color therapies, aromatherapy, sound therapies in that process. And some of them reversing their conditions. And I needed some answers. And through a chance meeting, I ended up meeting one of an Aboriginal elder, who when I spoke to him, he suggested I talk to one of their healers. When I spoke to her, the end result was I was invited out bush and ended up joining the same Aboriginal group that I'd met many, many years before. That led on to me going through my initiation of going out bush every weekend to learn about culture, because I thought, right, if I can understand the culture, I can understand what's going on in my massage. The end result, I ended up being about a year later, being invited to go through my rites of passage from boyhood to manhood at the age of 50. And then my youngest boy followed me through the following year. He was 16 at the time, which was a little bit older than what the Aboriginal boys would have gone through back in their traditional times. They would go through it at the age of 14. And so that's where that started. I'd used DISC and Myers-Briggs profiling all the way since the 1980s. But I found that I was working with a company that taught currency trading, and none of their students made any money. And so they brought me in. And so they had a great instructor, a qualified trader. He was an expert in trading. He was always making money when he traded, but none of the students, after he finished training him, made any money. And so they brought me in. We used DISC, Myers-Briggs and other profiling systems, but realized that when they went live, they still lost money because they weren't matching their personality. When you ask people questions, they will try and second guess what you're asking. And so it didn't really work in that situation. So I needed something better. And that's when somebody just mentioned to me one day, you ever looked at reading faces? Now, one of the most important things I've realized in life is the most important thing I will ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything. And so with that, I then went looking for other systems, and I found 4 sciences that allowed me to be able to build better relationships. But one of the things to think about, this was put out by Morgan or Gallup Research, I should say, 7 points. The 7 management skills that everybody needs in business today is to build relationships, develop their people, lead change, inspire others, create critical thinking, and communicate clearly. The seventh one is create accountability. Now, that accountability is not given to your employees. It's accountability that they assume. If you treat people the right way, they will feel that they belong, that they contribute, that they're valued, and they will then apply themselves. The moment you micromanage or you treat them with disrespect, you're going to lose their support. And if all this the catch cry about working on your business never happens because you're too busy working in your business, because you can't trust anybody in your business. A true leader is the only one who can go and work on their business. And so with that point, I realized over all my life, the role of a leader is to make themselves redundant. When I first started my employment, I did my 5-year apprenticeship in Sydney with our national telephone carrier. I then went to Newcastle, where I was 23 at the time, and I was put in charge of men who were all older than me. My second in charge was 38, so 15 years difference. Another guy who was still one of my good mates, even at this point in my life, he was my boss in Sydney. He was now on my staff in Newcastle. And so this switch of trying to get those men on side, so I had to lead them. So that's where I started with body language to understand, because that was the flavour of the day. We had a gentleman over here by the name of Alan Pease, now world renowned in the body language area. And so I learned as much as I could from what he taught. Then I realised that, actually 22 years later, when I finally left telecom, half my staff wanted to resign and come with me. We had the highest performance in Australia in our area. Our customers loved us. And we also met every target that we ever were put in front of us, always under budget. And my employers, my bosses always thought there was something strange going on, because how can you have your staff love you? How can you have high performance? And how can you be meeting all the targets? You do that by building your teams. And so then in the 80s, I became a surf lifesaver. And I ended up being talked into being a patrol captain. We turned that into the patrol of the year. And I found out why they wanted me to be a patrol captain. They gave me everybody that nobody else wanted. And so in that, I turned that into the patrol of the year in my first year as a lifesaver. I then turned around and became the club captain, which meant I kept that patrol together and brought one of the members of the patrol, made him the patrol captain. They won the award again that following year. So knowing how to lead people, and this was kids that they thought were no good. And next thing you know, they're still winning the award without me being part of that team. That's the role of a leader, is to make sure you make yourself redundant. When I left the club, I was zone supervisor of 3 beaches, looking after 3 beaches. And in that process, I realised that I needed to make sure if I wanted to step away from that, I need to make sure somebody else could take it over. So the gentleman I actually put in charge of the club, and he didn't think he could do the job, but I could see that he could. A couple of years later, somebody who didn't like me from the club had walked up to me and wanted to sort of get under my skin and said to me, "Oh, Mark was a better club captain than you ever were." And I had the biggest smile on my face. He said, "What are you smiling for?" I said, "I couldn't leave that role unless somebody else could take it over, do the job, not as good as me, but hopefully better than me." And that way I could, and I've done the same thing in everything that I do. I'm actually creating and training my competition now in the profiling side of things. Anybody who does my master courses now, they ask me, "What can I be as good as you?" And I'd say to them, "Well, I hope you're going to be better than me, because you're going to get everything I've got to offer. Plus you're going to bring what you bring to the table. And the whole process is going to be able to create a program that you can go out and train other people with." So after they do my master course, we work in collaboration to create a course that is theirs to go out and promote. And I then promote them, because while I'm promoting them, I can then go to other industries and find other people like them and duplicate myself. And it's them who go out to the public and work with the greater masses. It's that multiplication factor. How do you duplicate yourself? And this is the best way that I can do it. Now, everything we do, they'll say that when you do stuff, you should have all these different things you should do, and then have fun. No, fun is at the very first thing. If you're not having fun in what you're doing, you're going to struggle with it. So you'll notice the word fracked. I was sitting down with 2 friends of mine. We were co-creating a course, and we were mucking around and going, well, what acronym can we use? And we came up with, we'll tell everybody to get fracked. The fracked, F for fun. You got to have, respect for the people around you. If you don't respect them, they're not going to respect you. And if they don't respect you, you're not going to get anything out of it. There's got to be aligned values. You have to be on the same pathway, and you've got to be able to communicate. If you put all that in place, then you're going to have trust. And that's the only way you're going to get anything really done. But we're moving closer to the profiling side of it now. But the whole thing to remember is that you don't have to be perfect. There is nobody who is perfect on this planet. You need to remember that everybody is suffering and insecure. Everybody wears a mask. Everybody pretends they're not wearing a mask. And we are a product of our childhood sufferings and rewards. In other words, we're the sum of all of our experience. In actual fact, we are the sum of how we've chosen to respond to all of the experiences in our life. People don't do stuff to us. They do stuff around us, and we then decide how we respond to that. And so any of the anger and other things that we carry on, that's all to do with us, not the other person. In fact, as I said before, married and divorced twice. My first wife built the relationship with my sons with her so that they would respect her, because if they didn't, they wouldn't respect other women. About 10 years ago, this is well after my oldest boy is now in his mid-30s at that time, she needed somewhere to stay for 3 months. And she came to me and she said, Alan, you got a spare room. Can I be a lodger? I said, pay your own way, live your own life, stay out of my business, because I've got work to do. I've had clients coming to my place. And she said, yes. And I said, 3 months. She said, yes. Well, she moved out 3.5 years later. Now, how could you do that, Alan? Because I looked at it and thought, right, what did she bring into the marriage? Not what she said to me, I'm not good enough to be a husband. But the fact that I have 3 sons that I love and respect and now 6 grandkids, that's what came out of that relationship. And therefore, she deserved to be respected for that. And that's why I could do it. It comes down to a decision of how you choose to do things. Now, everybody's unique. Everyone has a story. Everybody has a gift. Every last one of you. That's why I started the Campfire Project, so people could come and tell their stories, so they could realize they weren't on their own, but at the same time, there was other people that had similar backgrounds or similar things, but they had their own uniqueness. So if you have a unique story, which everybody does, therefore that story is valuable. You're valuable. And this is the thing that I really keep pushing when it comes to the relationship building. The 3 areas, this is where the 4 tools that I use fit into 3 areas. The very first one, and this may sound a little bit woo-woo, that your facial features tell me your personalities. If you think about it, if you lift weights, if you did bicep curls, you're going to build your muscles up in your biceps. If you do it with your palm up, holding the weights, or you do it with the palm down, holding the weights and lifting it up, you'll get different structure in the muscles. So we know that any muscle we work over and over is going to be developed. We also know that everything we feel inside, we express outwardly. That's why body language and micro expressions work. This is why psychologists work, psychiatrists work when they're talking to you. You put those two together, when you're thinking, you're going to be pulling expressions over and over, because your physiology and neurology are permanently linked. Whatever you feel inside, you express outwardly. So the end result is you're going to create ridges and crevices on your face that give away how you like to think and process. That's your nurture traits. They're the ones you develop over time. You'll have your nature traits, which were passed down from your parents. So where this profiling works, at birth, there are some traits I can see in a newborn. Things like a music trait. I can tell you whether they need to be on the move. They're going to play hobbies and sports where they're going to be moving a lot. As they get older, before they get to primary school or to even kindergarten, I can tell you where they're going to fit the education system with those traits. Before they pick their final subjects, now we know what careers will suit their personalities, and we can point them in the right direction for the right studies. Do they go to college? Do they go to university? That will depend on their academic levels. But the type of job they're going to do, the type of work, that we can pick up straight away. Then if you're able to read your partner, then you know how to have a stronger relationship with your partner and keep that spice in the relationship, or even regain the spice in your relationship. At the same time, you're going to be happy in the work you're doing then. If you're doing a job that matches your personality, you're going to be happy. Therefore, Happier at work, less arguments and fights. Happier at home, better relationships at home. And your employer makes more money because if you're productive and happy, you're productive. We know that somebody who's been bullied, their performance drops by 40%. The people around them who observe it, actually it drops by 70%. And those that are very close to it and observing it, theirs drops 40%. Across the whole organisation, it can drop as far as 30%. So the end result is when you've got people who aren't happy, you're destroying your business. So if you micromanage, you're not going to get productivity. And so it's about how do I build that relationship with people. People say, I haven't got the time to really spend time understanding other people. And I go, well, you can't afford not to. Because when people say, what do I bring to the table? Or actually what you bring to the table, they're talking about your products and services. The only answer I can give to that is I bring the damn table. The relationships are the foundation of everything we do, and we build everything else on top of that. That's the priority. So the facial features tell me your personality. Once I know that, I know how to change the way I like to be spoken to match the way that you do, because I know where you are on the world scale and I know where I am on the world scale. And when I talk to people about some of their traits, they make, oh, that's not really me, because we all have our feeling of where we are. We're the center of our own universe, and everybody else is either to one side or the other side. Where I see you is where you're on the world scale. And so now I can change the way that I like to be spoken to. And by the way, Caroline, you might like to just turn your microphone on for a second. I've got a quick question for you, and I'll get a hand raise from the others on the screen. If I mention some of your traits here on screen, is that okay with everybody? If I can tell you what I'm seeing in your faces? Excellent. Yeah. Great. Well, looking at Caroline straight away, I know that she likes the overview, the least amount of information. She can make a decision on that really quickly. If I sit here and talk to her with all the information I need to make a decision, she's going to switch off. She's going to finish my sentences or trying to move me along. I can make a sale with her fairly quickly and then keep talking and talk myself out of the sale because I haven't spoken to her in the way she needs to be spoken to. But if I said to you, Caroline, there's a lot of information in what I'm going to share with you here, but what I'm going to do is give you the overview, the least amount of information, set the big picture so you understand it, and then you can ask the questions that you want to ask. But if there's something there that you haven't asked that I think is important, it's all right if I can tell you that then. And the end result is I'll get a yes from Caroline, and at that point, give her the overview, ask questions. Now we're having a conversation. So Caroline knows that I'm not going to be talking at her, I'm going to be talking with her. And at the end of it, if there's something there she hasn't asked, that's what I'd say. Caroline, look, there's some, as I said before, there was some stuff there that was really important you may not have asked for. That boring stuff, we're there right now. Is that okay? And so I get the nod and I can finish it. So the sale will take the amount of time it needs to take based on your personality, if I deliver it in that right way. I know that Laura Lee has what I call critical perception. She can find the errors in things very quickly, documents and things like that. I've got the same trait. You put a document in front of me and something's out of kilter or whatever, I'm going to recognize it. A picture on the wall that's slightly out, I'm going to see that. It's a brilliant trait to have. But as I said, every trait has an upside and every trait has a downside. That one's usually a bit of a killer in relationships because we think that something's going on. If it's not black and white, intangible, we can think that it's something else. And depending on our other traits, we can either build that up and make it a bigger thing than it was and make a situation that is not accurate. As I said, I've been married and divorced twice and a lot of other broken relationships as well. I'm glad I learned these skills because now I know where I screwed up in my relationships. Yes, my partners had their part to play in it, but I know what I did wrong. And so now when I'm looking at relationships, I don't have those problems anymore. Because if I start to feel that something's there, the first question I have is, Alan, is this your trait? Or is it the other person? Always check myself first. That way, then I know that I'm clear on that. I can then look at the other person if I realize it wasn't me, but it was them. If I realize it's me, it's really easy. Alan, get over it. And I move on. So it gives us the power by knowing the downside of our traits. The language then is right. We've got that communication. Then I've got your body language and micro expressions that give me the understanding of whether I've read you right. Is there something emotionally going on? And are you telling me the truth? This is how we get that know, like, and trust factor. This is how we connect with people. All of this has to be done before we can start talking about our products and services. But the good thing is, if I can see your face, I have your personality right in that instant, and I know how to talk to you straight away. If I can see your photograph, yes, it works there as well. I don't need to talk to you in person to understand your personality, because your facial features don't change in the moment. They change over time. So if I can see you today or a photograph of you today, and I can see a photograph of you of years ago, I've got a pretty good idea of what sort of a life you've had, what's gone on. That this is not mind reading, as I said before, but this is all based on science, the 4 sciences. Now, as far as it goes, oops, I just took that off screen there. I'll just get that back on, click the wrong button. There we go. This gentleman, he actually blew me away. He's a business coach over in Perth. After he sent me 5 photographs and I did his profile and sent him a 45-minute audio tape, he told me he used to be an undercover narcotics agent. He was in that particular role for 2 decades. He'd learnt skills that he believed were 85 to 95% accurate. As he said, if they hadn't been, he wouldn't be alive today. But what I put in that audio tape not only matched, but nuanced everything he learned about himself in those 2 decades. Now, of course, he then jumped up and did signed up for my master course. This mother, you may have noticed when we got the full picture behind me, there's a book on autism behind me. Her son, I profiled him when he was 6 years old. He has Asperger's. The school didn't want him. After school care didn't want him. And the psychologist that he had said that he would always need a carer for the rest of his life. The end result, he wouldn't sit still for me, so I got her to take some photographs. She sent those to me. I gave her a written report in those days. She took it to the school and after schools care, told each of them that the others, each were doing it. And if they didn't do it, it would fail and it'd be on their heads. Nobody wanted to be held responsible, so they put it in place. The end result, at the age of 7, he was doing presentations in front of the class. Another year and a half later, they were able to let the psychologist go and medication was off the table with the doctor's approval. He's now, this is a boy that they said would always need a carer. He's now about to turn 20. He's moved from New South Wales up to Queensland. He's living in his own place and he is now an assistant manager in a nightclub. Totally unheard of. What it comes down to, this is the thing, we didn't change him in any way whatsoever. I taught his mother, the school teachers and the after schools care how to talk to him and the way he needed to be spoken to. When he was being spoken to in the right way, the end result was he's happier. He didn't get triggered. He didn't need medication. Change the other person's environment by being different yourself and straight away you'll get a different result. So that was there. Then,
my name's Kylie.
Yeah.
I'm the mother.
I'll just move on from that. This one, because I've put little videos in these, but we haven't really got time to listen to that, but they're available if you want to have a look at it, listen to them later. Caroline is a associate lecturer up in a college in Dublin, in Ireland. We started training on a master course late last year. That term went over the Christmas break. She normally has 7 students in a class. They come from around the world. They're in their late teens, 20s, and early 30s. They have conditions like Asperger's, dyslexia, ADHD, etc. And she would work with 7. Another college closed down, and at the same time, they had an influx of students as well from other sources. She went from 7 to 70 students that term. So multiple classes. She found that by being able to speak to them and unread them in the way that she could, she was able to put them in clusters working together. And she got the greater results. The end result was now that she had a great result with all the kids, but none of the other lecturers were, because none of the other lecturers had the skills in their particular classes. So now she's done my master class. We're now training her up with developing a course that she can now develop and deliver to the other faculty, members of the faculty. So she then becomes a leader in her field, teaching other people how to do all this. So that's a number of the things, but I'll drop that off. I'll get rid of my slides now and come back where I can see you all. Okay. So what this is all about, being able to read people to build stronger relationships, because, well, certainly the rest of you want to be able to turn your microphones on when we talk. That'd be great. Because I'm looking at Aaron. Would I be right, Aaron, that you like to have a lot of variety in the work that you're doing? You like to work on new projects. You don't like doing the same mundane stuff over and over. Would that be right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that I can see straight away in his face. So I know he's somebody who needs to be able to have variety in what he's doing. If he's doing a job and it's long, and this will be a suggestion for you, Aaron, if you're doing a job that's really long and laborious, break it up into sections. Have a look at it so you can look like you've created a start and a finish. Celebrate the finish. Go on to the next bit. So you can do the long project, but do it in stages. That'll make your life a lot easier. And I know that when you're working, the detail has got to be in the stuff that you're doing there as well. And by the way, I can see
I'm very detailed.
Yeah, I can see there's a dry wit there as well. So I know any conversation that you and I have, I can throw stuff at you and you can throw it back at me, and it'll be a lighthearted conversation. So you're not worried about political correctness to that point. Let's have a bit of fun while we're doing our work. But I can see that you also... it's how things feel inside. So would it be right when you're working on something and it's really involved and you're busy and everything else, the last thing you want is somebody to come over and hassle you to come and help them. If I came up to you and said, look, Aaron, I can see that you're busy. It looks like what you're doing is important. Then if I said, first of all, you just come over here and help me, you're probably not going to want to do it. If you did, you'd come over because you have to. But if I said to you that, I can see it's important, I can see that you're really involved in it, I really need your help. How much time do you need to leave what you're doing and come and help me? Would 5 or 10 minutes be okay? If you told me 10 minutes, I would come back in 11 or 12 and I would let you know that I've given you extra time, because I could see what you were doing was extremely important. You're really busy with that. So I'm actually acknowledging the work that you're doing. I'm acknowledging what you're doing is important to you as well. And therefore, I'm not just putting myself forward. I'm seeing who you are. I'm connecting with you. And I say, rightio, but if you can come over and help me now, and we really focus on my stuff, you'll be able to get back to yours sooner. If I told you the first example, just come and help me, physically you might be there, but emotionally you won't be. And your thoughts are still on your own problem. But by going through that process, I know that you're going to now go, okay, I'm going to help you get your stuff finished so I can get back to mine. And while you're working with me, your thoughts are going to be on my project more than not. So I can see that's a connection I've got there with you. But I know that you analyze things. Once you made your decision, it's just give me the best way to do it, get the hell out of the way and let me get it done. So straight into the action. So I've never sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking on it, communication is very key, because a lot of people have to look at both sides and say, okay, where can I find a common middle ground? And me and Caroline was talking about that on my Stage of Inspiration event. We was talking about the importance of communication, how to communicate, and how we can get both people involved, or whoever we're communicating with, and say, okay, this is the way that I view things, this is the way that you view things, and how can we make amends, and get together. I say, when we have more conversations like that, as people, we can grow and advance a lot quicker.
That's it. It's absolutely right. And with Caroline, I'll be right. When you meet people for the first time, you like a little bit of space. You like to be able to work out who's safe to be around and who's not safe to be around. So if I'm meeting Caroline for the first time, I'm not going to walk up and stand close to her. I'm the sort of person, as long as the person's not too much taller than me, I'll come up and I'll stand close. I'm quite affable. So friendly, that's the upside of my trait. It's also the downside of my trait, because I can be friendly with the wrong people, like the con artists. I won't recognize them until I had these skills. I was always being sucked in by different proposals or things. Whereas Caroline, you're more discerning. It's not that you're not friendly. And Laura Lee is exactly the same as well. You like a bit of space when you meet people for the first time. You work out who's safe to be around. And once you've worked that out, you'll come closer. So this is where your body language comes into when I'm having a conversation. If you step closer to me, I know that I have rapport. I know that you're starting to trust me. And straight away, I'm getting that feedback because everything's done in clusters. It is consistent with the situation, is congruent, etc. I always look at multiple things, like in body language, folded arms. Well, people will tell you that's because the person's switched off. It could be that they're cold. In my case at the moment, I've got torn tendons in both shoulders. So to be able to fold my arms and rest my arms is quite necessary. But if you've got somebody in front of you and their arms are folded, you could be intimidating them, so giving themselves a warm hug. What happens though, when they open their arms? I'm looking for the changes in things. So I never just judge a person on one thing. Like I pointed out a couple of traits on each of you at the moment. Each one of those don't define you. It's a combination of all the traits and how they work together. So if I can see your face, I know how you get triggered. I first of all know where your strengths are, so I know what tasks and things to give you. Because I know that Laura Lee is very good at organising people and events, seeing how things are structured. And she's got that dramatic flair as well that she puts into things. Whereas I know that with Caroline, you're very much in the mechanical appreciation as well, being able to see how things are structured, being able to organise. So therefore, if I'm looking for somebody to organise a team, organise people, it's going to be one of you two ladies. If I want someone to be able to get on stage and put some flair into things, it's going to be Laura Lee, because she has that dramatic appreciation. The difference is, though, as I said, upside and downside of all the traits. I've got aesthetic appreciation, which is pretty laid back. But when I get stressed, I'm going to withdraw to my cave. And that was one of the things in my relationships. When I was stressed and thinking about things and my partner had more of the dramatic appreciation, they wanted to know what was going on. And I just wanted to fix the thing. I just wanted to be left alone. And so as they ask me what's going on, I'm pulling further and further away. And that caused the problem. And now I teach people, if you've got a partner who has the aesthetic appreciation who goes quiet and you're more the dramatic appreciation and needs to know what's going on, you've got one question or two questions and a statement to make. The first question is this anything to do with me? If the answer is no, second question, is there anything that I can do to help you? If your partner says no, the third thing then is, I realize that you need to work on this on your own. I'm going to leave you alone to do that. But when you get it to, and this part's really important, but when you get it to the point where you can talk about it, come back and tell me, because I care. Because if you say, is it to do with me? Is it anything I can do to help? No, it's not. Oh, well, then go away type thing. That's the way they'll take it, that you've not lost interest. But if you add on the end, please come back and tell me because I care, they know that it's important to you to know, but it's also been important to you to let them get on with it. And you will get their respect. This is how you can bring that spice back into that part of the relationship. If it's the other way around, we'll say with Aaron and with myself, we have aesthetic appreciation. We're stressed out. We want to move away from things, but then we find that, excitement, if somebody is very vocal about things, and this is, by the way, we attract to other people because of the differences in our traits. The aesthetic appreciation person will be attracted by the dramatic appreciation because the dynamics of life and everything else. The partner doesn't really change. What we actually do is our perception of their traits change. So we get this excitement from the dramatic appreciation. That's what attracts us to them. We then get used to that over a time. And now we've started noticing when they get stressed, they do the same thing, too much energy. And for aesthetic appreciation, we just want to run away and hide. And so the end result is we get stressed with that. Our dramatic appreciation partner is trying to tell us what's going on in their life, and we pull back. So now there's a break there as well. But if we turn around, we've got only one question. It's easy for the aesthetic appreciation, talking to the dramatic appreciation, one question, and that is, do you want me to fix this or do you want me to listen? If you want me to fix it, then it's one of two things. Either this is a situation that's come up that you believe I have the power to fix and you'd like me to fix it and get rid of it, or I screwed up in the first place and you want me to fix that. The other side is if you say that you just want me to listen, now I know it's got nothing to do with me. I don't need to take this on, but I know that your personality is you need to vent. So I will sit there quietly without making any comments to be the eyes and ears that you needed. And as you can see, this goes back to the Campfire Project. That's how I had men and women coming along, especially men who have never told their story to their psychologist, their psychiatrist, their family, or anybody else. And within 5 minutes, starting to tell me what was going on in their lives, and me lucky to get another word in edgewise in the next 45 minutes. These were men who said, we can never talk about this stuff. The next thing you know, they're spilling their whole life story. And by the way, I find that I totally respect that from the people around me when they do that, because any man who can step up and tell the stories of the things that are holding him back, not to whinge, but to have somebody just to listen to them, that takes courage. This is one of the things I had to learn as I was growing up, that I was always told to suck it up, be tough and everything else. Don't wear your life on your shirt sleeves and all the rest of it. Worst advice I've ever been given. If I'd been taught how to be able to express myself without whinging, but express myself to be able to work through things, my life would have been a hell of a lot better. And this is one of the reasons why we've got these men now in the Campfire Project, thousands of them who step up and speak in a way that their partners can understand and they can appreciate them. And this is why it's so important to be able to connect and communicate with people the right way. As I said, if you pressure people, if you put expectations on them, you demand stuff from them, you're not going to connect. You have to connect at their level first. Talk to them in the way that they need to be spoken to. So has anybody got any questions at this point? Yep. Jerry Ann, you've just raised your hand. Would you like to put your... Oh, there we go. Hey, you're back again. Your microphone's off.
Got
There
it. So you had a list of the 7. Well, number 1, you had build relationship, develop people, lead change, and inspire others. Think critical. The last 2, I think one with the number 7 was create
Accountability.
Accountability. Yes.
Yeah.
So when you create accountability, what if the other person or the other people involved or group doesn't see your point in creating that accountability? It doesn't exist to them. So
that's why I said you can't give accountability to people.
Right.
You have to create it so that they assume that accountability.
So creating that's a whole different process.
Yeah. See, because if you go through those other 6 steps where you build relationships with your people around you,
Right.
you build in a way in which that they feel that they belong, that they contribute, that they're valued, that they have a place. When people do that, they take ownership of what they're doing. And when they take ownership of what they're doing, they assume the accountability to make sure it works. See, the real gift of a true leader and a true boss is somebody who can go on holidays, and in their absence, the company will not only survive, it will grow. In everything I've done in life, I always made sure that I could walk away from it. In the Campfire Project, the first co-host I brought in, Scott Carson, I met him in Sydney. We were both at a course down there. We were both participating in it. We started chatting. We got to know each other. And then he came to, and the way that happened, by the way, we were doing presentations. He had to present to me. Whole room full of people, everybody paired up, and he had to stand in front of me while everybody else got sorted, doing the same thing. And I could see he's looking at me and judging me because I'm dressed, in a good jacket and shirt and everything else. And he's an ex-bikie, well groomed, but at the same time, different background and much younger than me. He's in his 40s. I'm in my 70s. He looked at me and he went, "Mate, you're not going to like a thing I've got to say," because he had to tell his story. I did not give him any expression whatsoever. I went blank. I just stared at him. No blinking, no nothing, no expression at all. He then gave his talk, and again, I didn't react anywhere through his talk. At the end of it, he had to stand there quietly. So by this stage, his legs are shaking. The water that was appearing, the sweat under his arms is now meeting in the middle of his shirt. He dropped into the seat next to me as after I'd said to him, when I was allowed to critique, I got very animated, using a few choice words in it, saying how much I loved his talk. It was brilliant. He sat down next to me, and I said to him at that point, I said, next time, mate, don't judge a book by its cover unless you can read through the jacket. And that's what this came down to. So I profiled his wife for him from his a photograph on his phone, because they were having a few issues at the time. Came back to me the next day, the conversation they had that night, because it was a 5-day course or 6-day course we were doing. He told me how their relationship has started to improve. That's how easy this is. If I can see your face, I've got your personality, and I can tell somebody how to actually change the relationship and how they speak to you. And that's what I teach other people to do. So then I got him into the Campfire Project. He told me his story. He then joined the panel discussions. Then I asked him if he'd step up. And he said, what do you mean step up? I said, well, when are you going to start running one-on-ones and running panels? Because in that first meeting, in that first 5 minutes, I could see the quality in him. He couldn't see in himself.
That's amazing.
He's now stepped up. He's run one-on-ones. We've created the business of Smiles. He's the managing director of that. I'm a director. He is doing things that I haven't done before. And when he did a Facebook Live a little while ago, which I did put in, Be Connected in my videos, he was in tears, talking about the fact that I could actually see in him something that he couldn't see in himself, that I was the first person who ever backed him. At the age of 11, his father walked out on him. At the age of 14, he was on the streets with drugs, alcohol, and with the bike gangs. Never really felt much respect for himself. The amount of respect and admiration I have for him is massive. He's stepped up. He's working on the streets with men. He's doing all sorts of things. This is where I feel proud of the work that I do, when somebody else exceeds whatever I've been doing before. It's the greatest compliment that anyone can give me, is when they step up, they take what I've done and they take it to another level. He interviewed, the first person he decided he wanted to interview was his father, who he hadn't spoken to in 30 years. His father said yes. He interviewed him not to find fault, but to understand why he made the decisions he'd made. They started building a relationship. His son, at the age of 9, then wanted to interview Scott, his father. And so Scott said yes. We sent Oscar away to a couple of websites to get some questions, to come up with his own questions. The first one for his father was, why is it, Dad, you can give to everybody else, but you can't receive yourself? This is a 9-year-old, and 19 questions like that. And so he's been the youngest person to run an interview in the Campfire Project, and the oldest person I interviewed in there, bloke by the name of Ted Hughes. I advertised as being my TED Talk. Ted was 99 years old at the time. That was a few years ago now. So this is the thing. These skills work from the very young right through to the elderly. It's all about being able to read somebody and build relationships. So the best advice I can give to everybody is, as I said before, the most important thing you'll ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know everything. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I also subscribe to an old Arabic saying, which is trust everybody, but lock up your camels at night. So with the first one, take all that information in. As Bruce Lee said, take stuff in that suits you, reject the stuff that doesn't, and also add your own flavor, your own personality to it. And so by putting those first two together, that's virtually what you're able to do. But the one major thing at the end of that to remember is, and this keeps me on track to make sure that anybody who pushes my buttons, to get over it as quickly as I possibly can, find out why they do the things they do, listen to understand them, not listen to respond to them. And in that process, while I'm listening and talking to them, I get to understand them better, because when it comes down to it, what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the community is and always will be eternal. This is what drives me to see a better world. If I want to I'm as greedy as they come. I want to future-proof my life. I want to know that when I'm at old age, walking down the street at night or whatever, I am safe. I worked with one of the schools many years ago, walking down one side of the road, kids on the other side of the road yelling and screaming, not at me, but to me, to saying hello. They would come across the road to see me and me with a big smile on my face. This is something that quite often does not happen in society. We're always fearful of everybody around us. So I'll leave you with that last thought anyway, because I notice that we're on the hour at the moment. So over to you, Caroline.
Oh, thank you so much for this stage of inspiration. And I have an event too, or a meeting now in the next minute. It was such an inspiration. I have to listen to the replay to catch it all, and I cannot thank you enough for all the insights you gave. And I think I speak for all of the audience, and we will do this again, of course, and we will listen to you again, and all of you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. It was
You're
amazing.
welcome.